Saudi Arabia is building a cube so massive you could fit 20 Empire State Buildings inside it. A structure taller than the Eiffel Tower, so big it can create its own weather, right in the middle of the desert. And this is not a concept. Construction has already begun. If they pull it off, the Mukaab won't just change skyscrapers. It will rewrite how we build cities and how we experience reality itself. But almost nobody is asking the real question: what if this project is actually impossible to finish? If you've ever dreamed of starting your own business in Dubai, check out Virtuzone. They handle everything: setup, visas, all of it. Partner links below if you want to get started. Now, let's go back to the video. Picture this: a perfect cube, 400 meters tall on each side. That's about 1,300 feet. Taller than most skyscrapers you've ever seen. But instead of reaching up into the sky like a needle, it's a cube. To put that in perspective, you could stack 70 regular houses on top of each other and still not reach the top. You could fit the entire volume of Madison Square Garden inside this thing 9 times over. But the size is not even the craziest part. The Mukaab is a building wrapped around an entire city. Inside this cube, Saudi Arabia plans to create a full-scale urban environment with shopping districts, entertainment zones, hotels, and residential towers. All of it covered by the largest indoor space ever constructed by humans. And the outer walls? They'll be covered in advanced display technology that can project anything, from ancient Arabic architecture to futuristic digital art. At night, this cube could look like a massive glowing portal in the desert. The Mukaab is the centerpiece of something even bigger: Riyadh's new Murabba district, a 19-square-kilometer development that's part of Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030, the kingdom's ambitious plan to transform from an oil-dependent economy into a global hub for tourism, technology, and culture. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, known as MBS, has been betting billions on projects like NEOM, The Line, and now the Mukaab. There's Saudi Arabia saying, "We're building the future and the world needs to pay attention." But building the future comes with a price tag that makes most countries nervous. Here's the thing about cubes: they're terrible for tall buildings. Engineers love triangles and curves because they distribute weight evenly and handle wind pressure. That's why most skyscrapers are rectangular or cylindrical. A cube creates massive structural challenges because every side has to support equal amounts of weight while also dealing with wind forces that hit differently depending on which direction the wind is blowing. The Mukaab will need a structural system unlike anything built before. We're talking about a support framework that can hold up something weighing as much as 400 regular skyscrapers while keeping the interior space completely open. Think about that for a second. The whole point of the Mukaab is that the inside is one massive open space. That means no giant support columns cutting through the middle. All the weight has to be carried by the outer shell and an invisible internal skeleton. Now here's something even stranger. When you create an indoor space this large, you accidentally create your own weather. Large indoor spaces can develop clouds, temperature variations, and even precipitation if the air isn't managed perfectly. The Eden project in the UK, which is tiny compared to the Mukaab, sometimes has to deal with indoor rain. Saudi Arabia will need to install the most advanced climate control system ever designed, capable of managing air circulation, temperature, and humidity across a space that could hold 250 million cubic meters of air. To cool this thing during Saudi Arabia's brutal summers, when outside temperatures hit 120 degrees Fahrenheit, they'll need enough air conditioning power to cool a small city. The energy requirements alone could power 50,000 homes. Remember those outer walls covered in screens? Those screens need to be durable enough to survive sandstorms, extreme heat, and intense sunlight while displaying clear images 24/7. Current LED technology can do this on smaller buildings, but covering 400 meters of surface area on all 4 sides, that requires manufacturing display panels at a scale we've never attempted before, and making sure they can all work together seamlessly. One glitch, and you've got a dead pixel the size of a bus on the side of your cube. Saudi Arabia hasn't released official budget numbers for the Mukaab, but industry experts estimate it could cost anywhere from $50 billion to $100 billion when you factor in the entire new Murabba district. For comparison, the Burj Khalifa, the world's tallest building, cost about $1.5 billion. The new World Trade Center complex in New York cost $4 billion. Even Apple's spaceship headquarters in California only cost $5 billion. The Mukaab is playing in a different league entirely. But here's where it gets interesting. Saudi Arabia has the money. The kingdom's public investment fund manages over $700 billion in assets. They're not worried about affording this project. What they're worried about is whether they can build it fast enough and whether anyone will actually come. Vision 2030 has a specific goal: attract 100 million tourists to Saudi Arabia every year by 2030. Right now, they get about 18 million. That's not a small gap. That's like expecting a restaurant that serves 50 customers a day to suddenly serve 280 customers a day, and hoping they all leave 5-star reviews. The Mukaab is supposed to be one of the main attractions. Saudi Arabia is betting that people will fly to Riyadh just to experience this massive indoor city. They're imagining families taking photos in front of the cube, influencers filming content inside, and global events being hosted in this futuristic space. But there's a catch. Saudi Arabia's tourism industry is brand new. The country only started issuing tourist visas in 2019. They're competing against destinations like Dubai, which has spent 30 years building its tourism infrastructure and reputation. Here's the uncomfortable truth nobody wants to say out loud. Saudi Arabia has a history of announcing massive projects that never quite materialize the way they promised. NEOM, the $500 billion futuristic city, was supposed to be a technological utopia powered entirely by renewable energy. Years later, construction is happening, but it's way behind schedule and billions over budget. The Line, a 170-kilometer-long linear city with no cars or roads, was supposed to house 9 million people. Now experts are questioning whether it's even structurally possible to build. If the Mukaab follows the same pattern, Saudi Arabia could end up with an incomplete megastructure sitting in the desert, a monument to ambition that outpaced reality. But here's why we can't just dismiss this as another vanity project. The Mukaab represents a fundamental question about the future of urban development. As cities get more crowded and temperatures rise due to climate change, we're going to need new solutions. Outdoor cities in extremely hot climates are becoming less sustainable. Air conditioning costs are skyrocketing. Public spaces are unusable for months at a time. What if the answer is to move cities indoors? Singapore already has massive underground malls connected by climate-controlled tunnels. Montreal has an entire underground city with 32 kilometers of tunnels connecting buildings. Even Houston, Texas, has a 6-mile tunnel system connecting downtown buildings. The Mukaab takes this concept to its logical extreme. What if we didn't just connect buildings underground? What if we built an entire neighborhood inside one giant structure? China is watching this closely. So is the UAE. If Saudi Arabia proves that megastructures like the Mukaab can work, you'll see similar projects pop up across the Middle East and Asia within a decade. Imagine cities where the entire population lives inside climate-controlled mega buildings, where outdoor space is reserved for agriculture and renewable energy, and where transportation happens through internal transit systems instead of cars on streets. It sounds like science fiction, but that's exactly what people said about skyscrapers in 1900. Here's the twist. The Mukaab could actually be more sustainable than traditional cities, if they do it right. Concentrating millions of square feet of space into one structure means you can optimize energy use, recycle water more efficiently, and reduce the need for transportation. Instead of thousands of separate buildings, each with their own air conditioning systems, you have one centralized system serving everything. Saudi Arabia claims the Mukaab will be powered by renewable energy and designed for maximum efficiency. If they pull that off, this could become a model for sustainable megastructures in hot climates around the world. But there's a big if here. Saudi Arabia's track record on sustainability promises hasn't been great. NEOM was supposed to be carbon neutral. Now it's unclear if that goal is even being pursued. For Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, the Mukaab isn't just about tourism or architecture, it's about legitimacy. MBS has spent the last decade consolidating power, implementing social reforms, and trying to reshape Saudi Arabia's global image. But he's also faced international criticism over human rights issues and political controversies. Projects like the Mukaab are his way of saying, look at what we're building, look at the future we're creating. If the Mukaab becomes a global landmark that people actually visit and admire, it validates his vision. It shows that Saudi Arabia can compete on the world stage, not just through oil wealth, but through innovation and ambition. If it fails, or worse, becomes a half-finished ruin, it becomes a symbol of wasted resources and broken promises. Dubai built the Burj Khalifa and became a global city. China built entire cities from scratch and became an infrastructure superpower. Qatar hosted the World Cup and put itself on the map. Saudi Arabia is trying to do all of that at once. The Mukaab is just one piece of a larger strategy to make Riyadh a destination that rivals Dubai, Singapore, and Shanghai. But mega projects have a way of exposing weaknesses. Dubai nearly went bankrupt building its skyscrapers during the 2008 financial crisis. China's ghost cities show what happens when you build without real demand. Saudi Arabia is gambling that the world wants what they're building. But what if the world isn't interested? Construction on the Mukaab officially started in 2023. The target completion date is 2030, just 6 years away. That's an impossibly tight timeline for a project this complex. Most skyscrapers take 5 to 7 years to build, and they're nowhere near this ambitious. So here's what we'll be watching. Can Saudi Arabia actually finish this on time? Will the technology work the way they promise? And most importantly, will anyone actually come? Because if they pull this off, the Mukaab won't just be the biggest cube ever built. It'll be proof that we can engineer our way out of almost any problem. Even the problem of how to build a city in one of the harshest climates on Earth. But if they don't, well, that giant cube sitting in the desert might become the world's most expensive reminder that some dreams are too big, even for kingdoms with unlimited money. The countdown has started, and the whole world is watching. If you thought Saudi Arabia's cube was futuristic, wait until you see what China just built. 157 kilometers of highway with 0 human workers. Click Watch Next to see how that's even possible. And support the channel by subscribing or clicking the link in the description.